Okay, let me do a little news update, though I have not checked the news. But this might be helpful. I did watch the news yesterday. I'm not sure if the government is, quote, still shut down or not. I watched some of the reaction of various Congress people, and I watched how the news covered this, the, quote, government shutdown. There are some people that are in Congress that have been there a long time, both Democrats and Republicans. And some looked at what's referred to by the Republicans as the Schumer shutdown, and they say the Trump shutdown. Some that really know and look at everything, they know that over the reason that Schumer and the Democrats pushing for the docket, but they understand that it is a game in the sense that Mr. Schumer and others made statements that you don't use it like as a bargaining chip and all. But I want both sides to see when I watch the news, Mitch McConnell, other Republicans, they are saying this is a joke or this is ridiculous. What they were referring to was the insiders know that the Schumer crowd did really overstep their bounds in the procedures of shutting it down. And they wanted to get news clips, and they got them where Schumer said, and the reason the government is now shut down is because basically Trump's inability, see the narrative, Trump's inability to lead. And it was a political move. And how do I know that I was correct? That the Pelosi's and the Schumers and all, non-Hispanics, who made various statements, particular Schumer, that these people that he says he's advocating for, in the past he made statements that these people are criminals, and don't buy into the view that they're just here as people that are filling the need and doing jobs. Schumer said he's against that view, but then he changed. Now, some Hispanics are beginning to see in leadership what I told you. I think it was Gutierrez and maybe Javier Becerra, who I'm not a big fan of. Some of them began saying, give them the money for the wall so we can do something with the DACA dreamers. They're beginning to see that all of the, quote, Democrats, and particularly white ones, are not as concerned as they make you think. If Mr. Durbin, another white Democrat, was as concerned for the dreamers as he claims to be, and he was in there a week ago talking to Mr. Trump, knowing that maybe his own child's protection was at risk, he would have never left a meeting and blew it up the way he did by quoting the bad word that Trump used. Now, let me give you another example. People that are watchers of politics and news and everything, and I try to be fair, many of them realize that they did get away with a lot of stuff that they should not have gotten away with in some of these political machinations that have gone on. And I'll give you one example, and I've tried to explain this before. If Mr. Trump today, and I don't know the state of the shutdown, I didn't check the news yet, if one of the things Trump tweeted was, use the, quote, nuclear option, and I'm surprised the media didn't go out and say, he's talking nukes. But what he meant was, why does the government, quote, shut down? Because by law, Congress is the one that has to vote on funding. Okay? We say Congress has the purse strings, meaning presidents cannot make law themselves, and presidents cannot bypass Congress. Okay? You have the judicial, the executive, and you have Congress. We have three branches of government, okay? Now, when Trump said, but there's what we call a filibuster rule, meaning this. Even if you have 50-something Republicans in the Senate and 49 Democrats, or vice versa, hundreds U.S. senators. If you pass something by what's called a simple majority, you have like a rule, and it's called a filibuster rule. And as a matter of fact, in the past, the Democrats under Senator Harry Reid, they kind of did what's called the nuclear option. They did this themselves, and they simply made a procedural thing where they said, we're just going to let a simple majority either pass or fail. But a filibuster rule says you got to basically have 60 senators, because then they say, we're going to filibuster, we're going to, quote, in theory, give speeches and speeches, we're not going to stop. That was the old way it used to be done. All right, without getting too technical, Trump said to Mitch McConnell, okay, the senator, lead senator Republican, he said, just do a regular vote. And people were up in arms. No, we can't have. What would you think if Mr. Trump simply came out and said, you know what? I just decree that the government will be funded. I just have made an executive decision. No vote, no 51, no 60. I have just decided that I'm going to break the law and say fund the government. Now, most people, every media figure, every Republican and every Democrat, everybody would honestly say, no, this is wrong here. And they'd be outraged. I could see the CNN people. No, this is really wrong. There's times where the media lies to you, and then when there's something that's really true, they kind of almost say, oh, no. They tell you, well, in essence, yeah, we lie about a lot of stuff. No, this one's true. Everybody would be up in arms. And imagine if Mr. Trump did that. He said, forget Congress. The people elected me to get things done. And I'm making a decree. You say that wouldn't work. Well, say if he did it. And the money went out and the government opened. And Congress did not do what is actually their job to do. It would make no, if Trump used that as an excuse, well, they're not doing their job and the people elected me to get something done. Now imagine immediately if he did that and he got by with it, well, how would they stop it? Congress would have to take it to court. They would have to say, we're going to court immediately. Now imagine if there was a judge during the court procedures on the various circuit courts. Imagine if there was one that really hated the Democrats, and he simply said, well, Mr. Trump, he believes that because of the shutdown of the government, tragically we had a helicopter crash, a military helicopter, this on the news last night, and the surviving wives of the men who died cannot collect their $100,000 life insurance on those people because the government is shut down, all right? That's a sad event. Now imagine if Mr. Trump simply said, and the judge said, well, Mr. Trump thinks by shutting down the government, and particularly the money that these widows are not going to get, that shows harm and damage, and anybody, Democrats, Republicans, and media would say, look, that's not the debate, whether or not Mr. Trump's order is going to help some people. The debate is, did he overstep his authority, which of course he would. Mr. Obama did that, and he didn't just do it on one occasion. He did, the DACA is what he did, and I'm for the Dreamers. But he himself admitted, as a president, I can't do something like this. Now imagine if a judge ruled and simply said, I side with Trump. He showed that there's damage if the government is shut down. He showed that, yes, I agree with Trump. And can you imagine, Schumer's head would explode. They've done that. And how come they got away with it on the other side? Because of the way the media is. And the biggest proof of that, of all the criticisms of Mr. Obama, was that we actually had proof that they illegally used the Justice Department to target people that were political enemies. That's much worse than the speech that a particular Republican gave the other day. Forget who it was now. It's got the name Flake. Jeff Flake. He gave a speech the other day, and he compared Mr. Trump to Stalin because of the media and the. But if you looked at the media, it's a joke in this country now. And I just gave you that one example because Mr. Schumer and others know that if a Mr. Trump tried to overstep his boundaries, and say if he succeeded, and he said, nope, I funded it myself. I funded it myself. And say if you had video of Trump 6 months ago saying, no, I can't fund it myself, and then he did it. Mr. Obama did that with DACA, simply meaning he had said at one time, look, I cannot make an executive order that would make a change of law. But then later he did it because he knew the media would play the game, which they did. And he thought, let's let Congress sue me, which they did not do. But then, when a new president got in, of course you'd think it would change. And then you had a judge out in California who said, no, I think it's really not a matter of, I could say to Mr. Schumer, no, if Trump did it on his own, Mr. Schumer, because we need that money. It's all a game that they're playing with you. And remember that. I heard two Hispanic representatives say what I said. Give them the money for the wall. I believe that they're realizing that you have particular other Democrats that want the game. You see, I heard a couple of them say, give them the money for the wall. You're going to possibly sabotage. And as I speak of the dreamers, and I'm in favor of the dreamers, every one of them, some of them in this country are not, they're not, most of them, I'm supporting the ones that have lived here their whole lives. But you have some that have lived here and have a little older now. And some would be like people that are involved in bad stuff. Now, I wouldn't say all of them, obviously. But some are. And what you would then say is, we do have a problem, we do have difficulty. But is it wise to, if you will, punish the whole country over something that is a shaky decree that a president made, Mr. Obama, that the courts are going to overturn? And that you had Trump, and I knew he wanted to make this a law, legally leave these kids here. And I know that some Democrats don't want him to be the one that does it. And so, if Mr. Trump did that today, not only would the nation be outraged, and they'd be outraged because I could hear Mr. Schumer now saying, you just can't do that. That's what they did with the, listen, that's what they did with the Obama thing. The media knew they did it. And when this judge out in California actually said, no, we're going to let the illegal decree of Obama stand, the media knew and the Democrats knew. And they were like, wow, look at that. We're really going to get Mr. Trump now. And that's why his spokesperson came out and said, this is outrageous. It was. It would be just like Trump if he funded the government on his own. So forget the Republicans. People like me get stuff done, and then even the Republicans, along with Democrats, they would sue to stop it. And then the judge said, nah, I think Trump's, you'd have the people so mad. And that's what they did in some of these instances, okay? And I just want you to see it because I know that the Democrats, some of them want good stuff, but the others are playing the game. And I could tell even when they showed video news clips of some Republicans saying, this is ridiculous. That's what they were talking about, some of what I showed you. And the media presented it as they were talking about Trump. See, they wanted the photo of video of Schumer standing up on the floor and saying, this is a result of the dysfunction of Mr. Trump, because they had that narrative all year long. I saw Jared Kushner on one of the, oh no, I saw Trump Jr., Don Jr., Mr. Trump's son. And he was on a show last night, whatever news when it was. And he said something that was also interesting, but he had like a 20-something minute with the quote, Russians. This is a meeting that was open, it's no secret. And he said that he had to go before the people investigating, and he spoke for like 21 hours over a 20-something minute meeting, or an hour meeting. And he said, you know, Hillary Clinton, when they interviewed her on Benghazi, I think they interviewed her like 10 hours over something that took place where Americans were killed. Now, I'm not just taking it from Trump's son, but he said, you know, they've gone after me, they've gone after my family. This is Trump's son. And he said, and then you let something like that, where Americans were killed, where destruction of hard drives, the breaking of Blackberries with hammers, which the Hillary Clinton people did, and then much of the investigation, now it's been revealed, basically they're trying to hide a memo. The Democrats don't want it to get out. When you have Justice Department and people like that are used politically to go after Charles Atkinson and tamper illegally, and they did some of that in this surveillance. And no matter how much you hated Trump, this is a much bigger issue. Politicizing FBI or CIA and all that. And in the beginning I thought that's fine, but now I do understand that now you got people that have done wrongdoing, using things. There's a high standard before you begin having a warrant on citizens. It's part of it. I think it's the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. You got a high constitutional standard before you go get warrants on people, meaning the government, the Justice Department. And then when you had the politicization of it, like Mr. Obama did have under Eric Holder and then Ms. Lynch meeting with Mr. Clinton, these normally are big constitutional issues that the media and liberals would fight against. That's a big danger there. Not Mr. Flake speaking at Congress and saying Trump's use of the term fake news is like Stalinist tactics. No. The tactics are when you use your own Justice Department to illegally obtain warrants and all, because you didn't meet the criteria. And then you used a political document or a political dossier. And the media knows all this, but they play the game. And so I just wanted to put it in perspective. You'd have outrage in this country if Trump bypassed Congress and did something that was beyond his boundaries, which Mr. Obama did on this particular thing. And then you had a judge say, no, Trump showed that the shutdown of the government is causing harm to some people. Therefore, and you'd have them screaming. Now they know they've done that on the other side. They know they have done that. And to them it's sort of like kids in the school ground. Let's do it. That's where you had some Republican people outraged at certain things that were done, because it was to that degree. And that's where you had some Hispanic representatives saying, give them the funding for the wall. Because they're beginning to see, I would never believe that Mr. Schumer is honestly concerned about the DACA kids, simply because I saw the statement on video where he said, these people are not citizens. And those who think that these illegal immigrants deserve the same rights as citizens don't. Mr. Schumer was saying that. So that's what tells me he's not truly concerned, and that this thing is a sham and a scam. And it's only accomplished because of the media. And to refer to it as fake media is fine, because you didn't even cover your own reporter by the name of Charles Atkinson, who had to write a book that she was tipped off that the Obama Justice Department was committing crimes by illegally going after her. And the media was complicit in not she had to write a book on her. That would be grounds for immediate impeachment and charges against the U.S. president. And when that happened under Mr. Obama, they figured that's a white lady. Whatever the white lady has to suffer, even if it's illegal tactics, that's a good thing to the media. They are the epitome of fake news. Never forget that. They are the epitome of fake news. You have never seen media at this point. I don't believe that a free media is what we have anymore. You have a manipulated media. You have a media that can do what I just explained to you. And then you have people in the country that say things like, well, if the media... No. The media, they're private corporations, okay? And there's no private corporation anywhere, meaning their goal is to make money for the stockholders, for the people that have invested, for the people. The true liberal view is you'd never put your trust in something like that. And that's what you have. You have in this country what's called corporate media. And when I hear people, even real liberals who are truly hold to their beliefs, when I hear them defend the media, and I'm like, you're defending a corporation that has their own, their bottom line is what they exist for money. They don't exist to speak truth to you. I just gave you a perfect example of that. All right, so 21 minutes is an update. I'll give a couple of teasers, meaning what's coming up. I talked yesterday. You know, there'll be a day, but this will be a day for everybody, okay? But there'll be a day where I'll say, coming up, there's something I want you to focus on. And then you'll never see the coming up. Because that day happens to everybody, okay? That's just, we're taught in Scripture. I read a meaning, we're going to die someday. And I thought, I had that just thought, because we're supposed to teach us to number our days. I read a chapter in Ecclesiastes last night. And you know, Solomon wrote it. And he looked at the vanity. And he said, he looked at it and he said, better is the person who's dead than the person who is alive. And then he said, but better is the person who has never been born. You know who also made that statement? And this is on the teaching video, actually, I just did yesterday. Jesus, about Judas Iscariot. It would be good for this man if you were never born. Very interesting. Coming up, there's going to be a few little, sort of like I'm trying to unfold some things as we teach Scripture. So there's a statement that I quoted it. It wasn't part of the Catholic verses, which I taught on, or Church Unlimited, but it said, from the beginning, a glorious high throne was the place of our habitation, sanctuary. That's in Jeremiah. From the beginning, a glorious high throne was the place of our habitation. But yet I'm going to show on the temptation of Jesus by Satan. One of those is, he gives him a panoramic view of all the kingdoms of the world. That's one of the temptations. Worship me. And Jesus resists. Man will not live by bread alone, but by every word that you shall worship God alone. Him only will you serve. You will not tempt the Lord your God. Now, how did the prophet Jeremiah say a glorious high throne? From the beginning was a place of our habitation. And we know the fall of Satan because he wanted to ascend. Now that's a little mystery, okay? And that'll be coming up on the video called Sunday Sermon. You're going to get Ephesians 4 before that one. But I want you to look at that, okay? There's a scripture in Jeremiah. A glorious high throne from the beginning is a place of our habitation. But then we also see the temptation of pride. But yet Paul in Ephesians will solve the mystery.